this was an instance which happened in one of the companies that I was consulting. They are an edible oil firm. So this was during the COVID period. They didn't know how to increase the sales. So one of the smart salesperson from Western India came up with an idea that if we give bucket as an offer with a 5 liter edible oil, we will have a good sales. So this idea looked pretty interesting for the management, and the management decided to go ahead with the bucket offer. So in that 2 months period, they had one of their best sales ever since the inception of the company because the scale just skyrocketed. Everyone were at home, and the house lady wanted a bucket to use for washing clothes and all those things. So bucket offer was a hit. That was the time when I went ahead and joined them as a consultant. So when I was looking at the sales number, there was one huge Mount Everest which was sitting in the numbers in the name of the bucket offer sales. So I was checking with the team that what happened. They narrated this was the story. I asked them what was the strategy behind that. Literally no strategy. Someone gave that suggestion and it worked. So I told them like that you had this Mount Everest, but remember that next year also you will have the same period. But if you don't have a Mount Everest, your sales numbers will look like a deep decline. It was done. So when the final D day was coming through, they decided that we will go with the bucket offer again. No thinking, no planning. They decided last year bucket offer worked. This year also we will do a bucket offer. But it was done in a very rush manner. What happened was that the buckets came to the market at least 2 weeks later than the advertisement which was on the TV. So what happened was that consumer were picking the oil, but no bucket was given. So because of which the company was pushing their suppliers that I need more buckets. They did it at a very fast pace. What happened was that there were quality concerns. So ultimately what happened is that consumers who picked the bucket also came and gave the bucket back, saying that no, we don't want this bucket because it is a faulty one. So one lesson which I wanted to start from here is that most of us actually forget that what has got us over here will not take us to the next level. So in the Unbecoming book also, this is a story of a person who is called as the god of offside cricket. So a person who is extremely strong with his offside cricket, all of a sudden finds that most of the pace deliveries have started beating his bat or taking an edge out of his bat, and he is getting out cheaply. And at that point in time, what he tries to do is that he gets locked himself in his ego, where he thinks that, okay, I am the god of offside cricket. So for me, it is a cup of tea. I should just improvise my shot, but he doesn't go ahead and learn, or he doesn't go ahead and correct his mistakes. So most of the time what happens is that we as individuals don't know how to overcome the invisible monster, the ego. So that's where the story starts, and how this person actually tries to shed his invisible monster, and rediscover himself is what the story is all about. Absolutely. So, given this background, I would like to start with the question with you, because you yourself being a cricketer and as well as a lawyer, there are a lot of times where you will think that, okay, I know. Because I've been on the field, I know how it works. I have practiced, I've appeared for so many cases, I know how it works. Yeah. How do you actually overcome this I know attitude with yourself first? Because that will be a much more revealing one rather than speaking about the book.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this process of unbecoming, I would say, which I went through personally, started very early in my life. It started with me playing cricket. So a team sport taught me this process, because I started playing cricket at the age of 11 is when I played my first national. And it was at this time that my coach introduced a practice called Kartikeya. Kartak is gauging the candlelight for concentration, for your attention span. And how coincidental life is that when my mother used to see me, 11-year-old kid, doing this concentration practice at night in the room, So she introduced me to a practice called transcendental meditation at the age of 11. And unlike the kids my age, I took meditation very seriously, only because I was playing sports professionally and I saw an immediate advantage of it. That I could see that intuitively there were moments where I would get into that state, which in Hindi is called Purvabhas. English we call it intuition. That your inner spontaneity blossoms and it is almost like you have an idea of what is coming ahead. But it was very accidental. It was almost like that state was choosing me. I had no power to get into that state. So it came like a glimpse. And that became a very deep question in my heart at that young age. How can at my will I enter that state of flow? And any team sport, and I generally encourage, many of you, in your family, if there are young kids, you must put them into some sort of a team sport. Team sport particularly because it builds a very beautiful character. It prepares you for life. If you see in our today's modern times, you're also part of a corporate and media group. Things have become so competitive that there is one element missing in the society. Nobody takes their defeat gracefully these days. People become very bitter the moment they lose an argument, a job, an opportunity, and they become bitter to the ecosystem around them. And team sport particularly teaches the value that you don't only have to perform for yourself, you also have to facilitate your colleague to perform for the team. And in sports, one fine day you will lose a very important tournament, but tomorrow there is another tournament. So how to bounce back by not relating yourself either with defeat or a win and go with a fresh hope next day. This is the quality which sport taught me at a very young age. And going deeper, of course, then I did my MBA. I went into marketing. I was looking after branding two of the apparel brands of ITC Group. I was campus speaker. Then after 5 years into marketing, I did law and then opened my own law firm. So all these transition from sports to management, marketing, and from marketing to law. Only thing which made me, sail through all these professions so smoothly was not being identified in the profession. Because whenever you're doing something new, the transition from marketing to law is a huge transition. Often, what comes in between learning something new is the old that you have learned. Exactly your question. And there comes the concept of detachment, which in our modern society many people get scared of. We feel that detachment is meant only for monastic life, or a sadhu, or a saint wearing a saffron robe. Detachment is the superpower. If you see the spiritual essence of the word detachment, it simply means absence of greed and fear. So when Lord Krishna was telling Arjuna that focus on the task, not on the outcome. You're not the doer here, outcome is not on you. Be total with the action. He was the first philosopher to teach what detachment actually means. It is simply absence of fear and greed. What takes your attention away from the present moment? And if I take help of cricket, but we can take example of from any profession. So when a batsman is playing well and he's completely in the zone, what will take his attention away from the present moment is either an influence of fear or a greed. When a fear comes, he will immediately take his attention away from the present moment, from the act to the outcome. Now, the fear is always about the outcome. What if I don't score runs today? Maybe tomorrow I will not be fit for the team. Now, this attention which has gone to the outcome will give a half hearted involvement with the present moment and it will bring a very inferior result. The same thing happens with greed. When you're in the moment, in the act, if the greed comes in, like in case of a batsman, he will impose his desire in the present moment. He will go predetermined. He might think, okay, next ball, I'm going to step out and hit it on long on. Well, the bowler may not hold you there. It might be a trap. But now I'm not seeing the present moment for what it is. I'm seeing it from the desire of how I want. And you go predetermined. You step out, but the ball is not there. So what takes you away from reality, from this very present moment? I say Maya, this illusion, has two weapons, fear and greed. And detachment is that superpower which simply means absence of fear and greed, so that you can be total with your action in the moment. And that's when you go from one transition to the other without taking the baggage of the old and trying to see the new from the lens of the old. And this is what detachment taught me, and I tried bringing it in over the practices. Further going into the nature of fear and greed, they're exactly the same. If one has to understand detachment, it becomes very important to understand what fear and greed is. They are two sides of the same coin. Tell me, what are we most fearful about?
I, in fact, have a very nice story to share over here. As a kid, I've always had this fear of heights.
Yeah.
So I will always avoid this rides in this theme parks. So I will always keep aside from these rides. Yeah. So this was once when I had been to Thailand and I had been to the Pattaya Towers.
Okay.
So what happened was that if you have not read about Pattaya Tunnel, you can just check it out. It is some 55-story building, and you have an option for jumping from the top floor down in a row. So then I thought that
Bungee jumping.
kind of a not a bungee jumping. It is a kind of a jump where you jump from the top floor to the ground floor. Okay. So me and my friend, I was shit scared of heights, but I thought that anyhow we have got a ticket for this tower, so let me just go till the penultimate tower, have some snacks over there, and get down. Correct. So when we went to the penultimate floor, there was this some intuition which was instigating that why don't we see from what is happening from the top. Yeah. So when I reached there, everyone was looking like ants to me. So I felt that, oops, I made the biggest blunder of my life. So let me just watch from here once and get down. So while I was speaking with the person over there, we all of a sudden jumped from the top floor with all the harness and everything, and she started screaming that don't miss this jump. So that point in time, I was thinking that why not? Why don't I try? So that was running in my mind. So when I was about to do this, they took a signature in a paper. When I read that, it said that if the harness just snaps midway and if you fall down, we are not responsible for your death. So I didn't know how to react. One is that the fear of height was always there, and then I saw this form which said that any mishaps we are not responsible. But then I thought that okay, why don't I try? And without thinking for a while, I just went ahead and wore the belts and jumped. For the first 10 seconds, my heart was in my mouth. I didn't know how to react. But after that, I started shouting that please don't miss this jump. See, most of the time, what happens is that fear is a barrier which actually stops us from exploring what is the unknown. And where you have clearly mentioned that overcoming the unknown is something where you will learn your lessons. So most of the times, there is a beautiful world which is actually waiting for us on the other side, but the fear of which is sitting in us for multiple reasons. It could be where you would have got some dizziness, or where you would have scored some less marks, or where you would have got a duck out in a cricket match. Anything would be the reason because of which you will not try. Most of the time, what happens is that when you stop trying, that fear actually becomes a huge mountain in front of you, and it actually stops you from enjoying how beautiful the world is on the other side.
Absolutely. And on that, when I was talking about fear and such a beautiful example he gave, that what lies on the other side becomes much easier to battle fear if you understand that how similar fear and greed are. They are two sides of the same coin. Well, then what are you most afraid about in life? Things that you are most attached to. So if you work on your fear, you will have no greed. And if you work on your greed, you will become fearless. They are like seesaw, and they come complementary in life. The fearful person will naturally get attached to things and become very greedy. So fear and greed are very complementary emotions which trap a person. And to be absent of fear and greed, one needs to have the courage to embrace the unknown, what he rightly mentioned. It is attachment to the known. And why we are attached to what we already know? See, our known is also the product of ego. Whatever we have experienced in life, or whatever choices that we have made, there is an illusionary image which gets built up in the head. This is me. But come to look at it, can it be only your past experiences or the choices that you have made? It is such a limited lens to see yourself, who you are. But this attachment to the known comes because there is a fear of unknown. The nature of reality, the present moment, is very unpredictable. And it brings the element of unknown. And we are too comfortable with the known. You go to a party, you see five familiar faces, you immediately feel comfortable. So it is that attachment to what you have already known that prohibits you explore the unknown. And the human being operates only out of two modes: memory mode and the observation. And 90% of the time, we are operating out of memory mode. And if I show you this mic, I ask you to experience it, look at it, right? You're experiencing it. But the moment I take off the mic and ask you to now see the mic, now you're memorizing it and it's not in front of you. Sadly, 90% of the time we operate out of our memory, this memory mode which I just showed you. Any stimulus, any event in life happens and our memory gets triggered. I know, which what we have already experienced, gets triggered. And we see the present moment from the lens of our past simply because we are too comfortable to predict it. Oh, I know about who it is. You see a person, you immediately judge it. Then I know how it will be. All this is coming from the attachment to what you already know in life. And what you already know will naturally prohibit you to use your observation. So in my book, sir, I have explained that life is a journey from thinking to experiencing. Now we are gifted with one very beautiful faculty, which is thinking. That's why we are mental beings. But at the same time, we are also experiential beings. This faculty of experiencing is dormant because of the fear of unknown, because of the attachment to the known. And thinking becomes our primordial, primary function, memory mode. Because if you see, thinking simply connects you to the past. And when you are trying to see a new experience from the lens of an old, there's always a mismatch. You're not seeing it for what it is. You're seeing it from the attachment of how you want it to be. So this simple attachment to the known creates a barrier to explore the unknown. And unknown, if you just be with me, that how thinking and experiencing don't happen together. If we understand these two ends of the pendulum, that in any given moment you are either thinking or you're experiencing. Both can't happen together. Because right now, if you start thinking something, somebody throws water at you, you'll not be able to see it. Whenever you're lost in thought, you're never experiencing anything. And when you're experiencing anything, the more deeper you go in your experience, you will see in that observation, there is more stillness, there is more thought in it. So experiencing and thinking don't happen together. Once we understand these two parallel worlds, it's very easy to move through them. And we need to work on the attention span, which is going very weak because of the algorithm, digital age, constant stimulus, which is trying to entice your emotions, to take your attention away, which is always trying to make you feel how incomplete you are. And the completion will happen only when you buy a certain product or look a certain way. And the projection which the society or our friends are making on social media, it is distancing you from your authenticity, from the knower in you. So the journey of spirituality or journey of being excellent in any profession is a journey from thinking to experiencing, inviting the unknown and observing it. It's a journey from known to the knower. It's a journey from intellect to wisdom. Yeah, thank you.
கட்டுறது கைமண்ணளவு கல்லாதது உலகளவு அப்படின்றது தான் வந்து what we know is just handful and what we don't know is the ocean. So the book completely revolves around this concept of you need to actually unlearn to learn. 90% of the time what happens with us is that attitude of I know, the ego actually arrests us in a block and actually stops us from exploring something which we don't know. So the book starts from how you should actually come out of your ego, how you should actually unlearn and relearn yourself, and attain a state of what I would call it as a nirvana or a wisdom, where you will start seeing yourself in everything what you do.
Absolutely. In simple words, don't try to marry an old thought with a new experience. A new experience always comes with a new thought. You need to be present to it to embrace the fresh perspective of a new moment.
And that's how the book revolves around. So I think now we should go ahead with the launch.
Absolutely.
And it would be wonderful if you could pick a copy of this book and read yourself too.
Absolutely.
Namaskaram, everyone. I'm privileged to be in the city Chennai today here to launch my book, The Unbecoming. My name is Kartikeya Vajpai. I'm a lawyer by profession, and I've written a spiritual fiction. It's a story of a cricketer and a coach, two lead characters, one in the pursuit of perfection in his craft, which is cricket, and through his own spiritual journey, he discovers what is that state of perfection. And in order to reach there, what all things, what all compromises, what all identities get dropped. And the other character is the coach. He is becoming a victim of failure and circumstances in life. So he's questioning life. He's going through an existential crisis and he is trying to discover what is the purpose of this life. So if you see both these characters, one in the path of the Karma Yoga and the other on the path of a Jnana Yoga, discover their own truth and their journey and what is their realization on both the path is what the book The Unbecoming is all about. It's a spiritual fiction for which the foreword has written by His Holiness the Dalai Lama himself and Swami Sarpriyananda, who is the current chief of New York Society of Vedanta and Ramakrishna Mission, has given the introduction of it. And I urge everybody to read it and benefit through it. The book talks about what creativity is. Book also talks about what is that state of perfection in any profession, how to reach that perfection. And it talks about a very, very important phenomena called rest in action, which in Patanjali Gita Yoga is also called skill in action. How to invite the state of perfection where your inner spontaneity blossoms and your awareness takes charge of the situation by blossoming your intuition power. So it's also a state which describes what is this nature of flow state, which philosophers and many meditation practitioners have already spoken about. So this is a path. This book is talking about the path of Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga, and I encourage everybody to benefit out of it. It's an humble attempt from my end to make these concepts, try to understand it through with the help of a story and characters. That's it. Thank you very much.
Will it transform the person who's reading the book?
Sorry?
Will it transform the person who's reading the book?
Absolutely. The story is of transformation. Both the characters are going through transformation. And it is the story which starts from a person who's having a lot of ego and which becomes an obstruction in reaching this perfect state. And that perfection, how it drops the person's ego and identity, that is the transformation which every reader will benefit through it.
It's comes in what language, sir? In multi-language.
Yes, it has been published by Penguin Random House, and today it's there in English, but very soon it will come in all the regional languages in Tamil also.
Who inspired to
Thank
write
you.
this?
Sorry,
Who inspired to write this?
who inspired? It's my own parallel journey into spirituality, and also I've been going to silent meditation retreats for past 10 years now. It's a center called Tushita. It's a Dalai Lama center. So within Mahayana tradition and our Advait Vedanta philosophies have become an inspiration for me to write this book.
How long you took this?
Sorry, how when I started writing? I started writing in 2020, and it took me almost 4 years to finish the story and then polish it. So that's the journey of the book.
Thank you.
Thank you.